Hey, it's Mark Lanier with your video thought for the day, bringing to an end a week where we've been looking at Black history. And it's Black History Month, an appropriate time to do so. And I've really personally been gratified by some of the history I've been reviewing again as I've prepared for these video thoughts. Today, I thought I'd end the week by looking at this issue from a little different perspective, but from a Black historical, biblical perspective. In other words, what does the Bible say about Black people versus white people versus brown people versus yellow people versus red people? Never met anybody with purple skin, but versus purple people. And the answer is really nothing, because the biblical message is not a message that pertains to the color of your skin. The color of your skin is irrelevant for those biblical purposes. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't references that seem pretty clearly references to black-skinned people in the New Testament and the Old Testament, both. You don't really have references to white people per se. Most of the people were probably brown-skinned of a Middle Eastern variety, but you do have reference to those who had black skin, by all appearances. I'll talk about three of them real quick. First, Moses married at least one of his wives. We don't know if it was Zipporah or not, but Moses married a Cushite woman. Now, a Cushite, typically Cush was associated with Ethiopia, and Cushite would be indicative of someone with black skin. And it's interesting because there is almost a hint of racism. I hope I'm not reading 20th century, 21st century issues back into the text, but I think that it's there. Frank Cross sees it in the text. And he's like this incredibly noted Old Testament archaeology type scholar. You'll find the text in Numbers chapter 12. Now, Moses, of course, has led the people out of slavery. And in chapter 12 of Numbers, there's jealousy by Moses's two siblings, Aaron and Miriam. And it reads that the jealousy is rooted in the fact that Moses had married a Cushite woman. So there seems to be some level of animosity over the fact that Moses had a black wife. And God visits judgment on Miriam and Aaron. And the judgment is interesting. God gives Miriam leprosy that makes her skin like snow. So if Cross is right, and this is a reference to God taking a brown-skinned Middle Easterner and turning her skin white because she's repulsed by Moses having married someone who's black, you see the irony there. It's a fascinating little possible twist. Let me tell you about a second one. In the Song of Solomon, this is a love poem that King Solomon, the son of David, is responsible for or attributed to him. And his love interest in the poem says that her skin is dark. Now, it may be simply by working in the fields, and it could be a dark brown. It could be black. I don't know where those lines are drawn anyway. But you've got that love interest there. And then third and last, from the New Testament, there's a time where Philip is transported and he sees a eunuch, an Ethiopian eunuch, who's traveling by chariot and reading the Old Testament scriptures. And Philip, who would have been olive-skinned, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern skin color, pulls aside the dark-skinned, the black-skinned Ethiopian eunuch and engages him in dialogue and brings him to faith in Jesus and full incorporation. So those are just 3 examples of skin color that are brought out in the Bible. But I think the overall lesson is that God's love for us and his message of his love is not based upon the color of our skin. It's based upon the condition of our heart. And that means that the way we love each other should not be based upon the color of our skin. It should be based on the condition of our heart and the conviction and example we have from God. And that's why Paul says that in God, in Christ, there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female. Those aren't the dividing lines. The dividing line is, do we have our faith in God? That's your video thought to take you into the weekend. Next week, brand new subject. I'll see you next week, but this is your video thought for today.